Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about gang stalking, motivations, and the hierarchy that goes along with it. We're also going to talk about these operatives that participate in this community harassment. And we're going to finish up with some defense and countermeasures to deal with this community harassment program. But first, let's talk about that these perpetrators are trying to achieve in this post-2000 COINTELPRO program. Number one would be the victim's suicide. They simply want to drive the targeted individual insane to the point of his own suicide. Number two is they want to tamper with the target individual's psychological makeup, to tamper with his psyche. Number three, somehow frustrate and trick the victim into committing a crime. Now, there's a lot of trickery and deception involved here, and this can turn quite deadly. Myron May being a prime example of this. Number four, isolation to make the targeted individual not want to leave his home. This is key in making this program effective. Number five, destroy the victim's reputation and believability, as the victim will likely be viewed as mentally ill should they complain or report the abuse. Number six, force a victim to leave an area or to move. And number seven, to silence a victim. Now, this right here should give the targeted individual more incentive to get out here and publish and record these crimes taking place, knowing that one of their goals is to silence you, to take your rights away from you. Now, let's discuss some of the motivations of these perpetrators. Motivations for community harassment include, number one, revenge for real or imagined offense. Number two, false accusations of a crime the targeted individual may have committed. Now, this is used to destroy or discredit the victim's reputation. Perpetrators facilitate and fabricate lies about the targeted individual to make this a reality. And they use this tool to get others to go along with this sickness. Number three, silencing a whistleblower. Number four, defecting from a cult. Number five, a vital threat to a group or a organization. And number six, simply knowing too much. Now, let's discuss the hierarchy and the background of some of these operatives. What I have displayed here is the layout of the hierarchy and how the whole process operates from top to bottom. To those of you out there that are familiar with this hierarchy, you will realize that this is a simplified, concise version of the actual model. I made this model here for those of you out there that have not seen this before to give you an idea of how this whole process operates. The actual hierarchy has many more levels and is much more complex than this. So at the top of the hierarchy we have the communist bankers. They like to refer to themselves as the elite. Nothing could be a bigger joke than this. We as targeted individuals, we are actually the elite. But this is where the money comes from for this whole operation. This is how this whole thing is financially fueled from these guys right here. Next we have the one who governs the daily operations, and for this model here we'll call him the head controller. There's also a IT specialist involved, sometimes more than one, but one IT specialist could handle this whole operation. And in a lot of incidences, the head controller and the IT specialist are one and the same person. Now, this head controller, he can't handle this 24/7, 365-day-a-year harassment by himself. He's going to need some help, and that's where these around-the-clock watchers come in. And 4 people could handle this whole operation easily if you break it down into 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. I have an example of this right here. For instance, shift 1 could be Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Shift 2 could be 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and so on. Now, these operatives here we're going to come back to in a minute and go into detail about them. Next we have these handlers in the street. these are the perpetrators in the street that you are not meant to see. They're the ones that are overseeing the process of the community harassment as it takes place. They document and record your reaction and take these results back to their upper powers for analysis. Last, we have the street level perpetrators. Now, this is just your basic garbage. This is your community watch, citizens on patrol, local agencies, people that have been lied to, misled. These are the ones that are hands-on responsible for these crimes. Now, how is this process handled so efficiently and effectively, and how has the harassment been established where the targeted individual's surveillance is confined 24/7, 365 days a year? Who is responsible for the installation and the activation of these illegal devices? That's where these operatives come into play. These operatives are stealth agents of a different kind. Along with having the power to work alongside with the police department, these are the principal agents involved in the warrantless entries into your personal property. And that they work alongside with certain members of the police department leaves them with no fear of or consequences for these crimes they commit. So who are the people committing these crimes? Well, one thing for sure makes sense. Inmates receiving early parole from prison in exchange to go to work for this new and improved COINTELPRO program makes a whole lot of sense. And these are the people that will do whatever it takes to stay out of prison. In essence, they become government property. And you got to understand it takes a certain mindset to be one of these operatives too. And four things come straight to mind when talking about these operatives and the way they think. Their mindset is blank, programmable, sick, and twisted. Now, since these are stealth agents that operate when the targeted individual's surveillance has been pinpointed away from his home or his car, it's very hard to catch one of these on video. So happens I happened to catch one when I was going into Walmart back in September of 2014. Basically what I did was I went inside, and I didn't stay inside maybe 15, 20 seconds, and I turned around and came back out. When I came back out, I was parked here, and within a 30-second interval, another car had pulled up beside of mine. It looked suspicious. So as I'm coming up to my car, the guy driving this car looks at me and moves on up here 2 spaces up, thinking I wouldn't think anything about it or noticing. Now, keep in mind back then I was only using one video camera, my dash cam, to get all my footage. So in this case it happened to work out. I was able to turn it at a 90-degree angle and catch the footage as I pulled slowly past this operative and around his car. Here's what he looks like. These operatives, amongst other things, are primarily responsible for the installation of the surveillance devices and tracking devices that have been illegally installed in your home, your vehicle, where you work, and places you may frequent. Logic dictates the FBI has increased its number of operatives and paid informants greatly in the last 10 years. However, the FBI no longer publishes this number. In the eyes of the FBI, COINTELPRO failed because it was extremely understaffed to handle up to 100,000 targets. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about this disposition matrix, but I would like to touch on a few key components of it. Those are neighborhood watch, law enforcement, and the end harassment. And let me explain something to those of you out there who are not targeted individuals, or you're new to this post-2000 COINTELPRO. This is not some watch list where you're checked up on periodically, like maybe once a day, like someone recently released on parole, or maybe you pass a few police cars daily. No, this is 24/7, 365 days a year, endless harassment. Targeted individuals' homes and cars are illegally broken into. Victims' personal property are subjected to warrantless searches. Now, when you're placed on a target list, you're then passed down to law enforcement. And this is when your physical surveillance can start. This is when all your rights have been destroyed. And these paid informants and these volunteer informants come into play. Ted Gunderson, a 30-year veteran of the FBI, handpicked by J. Edgar Hoover himself, had 700 people working for him. Ted Gunderson, in 2011, signed an affidavit stating that COINTELPRO never ended. Now, these operatives do the major dirty work, but let me tell you something about this neighborhood watch and these citizens on patrol. These citizens on patrol are the ones that work for these petty gift cards and other minor allowances, and to make things worse, they have no prior training. Wives and family members of the police department are some of the main participants in this community harassment program. Fortunately for us, the mental incapacity and the mental instability of these street-level perpetrators play in our favor. Let's take a look at this next video clip.
These street-level perpetrators definitely suffer from a misfit disorder. These two rookies are attempting to drive a horse trailer. Now, obviously from the footage I'm getting ready to show you, you'll see that they have never driven one before. After they have made their presence known, they decide to pull into a gas station. As you can see, as they pulled into the gas station, they hit a telephone pole.
Drive it, man. He's gonna hit a telephone pole. He just hit that telephone pole.
What?
He just hit that telephone pole.
It's probably a minor miracle they didn't destroy all those gas pumps. These perpetrators will do anything they are told, no matter if they have the cognitive ability to do so or not.
So as we look at this disposition matrix, or this kill list, we can see that the end result is death, whether by active shooter, suicide, or suicide by cop. Now, after careful study and analysis of this program, one can determine that this program is designed to turn one into a killing machine, or to leave one just totally mentally desolate. Adolf Hitler used gang stalking back in Nazi Germany to deal with his threats and his enemies. He used gang stalking to make his threats to appear mentally unstable or mentally desolate. Therefore, that was his reasoning for having them placed into concentration camps. Now, let's fast forward to today. Are we perhaps seeing a weapon that is being used in today's society to make one appear to be mentally obsolete, therefore sending them to their final destination, to a FEMA camp? Think about that for a minute. As targeted individuals, the more you resist, the harder you make it on these perpetrators. And they will resort to anything to impose their intimidation tactics or their police tactics upon you. Let's look at an example of this in this next video clip.
Here we have another Florida tag specialist. When this perpetrator made his presence known, I speeded up to see his reaction. Now, these perpetrators love to use fear tactics. When their tactics are failing, they will resort to anything to instill fear, to intimidate you. He obviously didn't like the fact he was being ignored, as you will see here in 30 seconds. I decided to slow down and let him pass by. Now, as a surprise move, he starts flashing his firearm for higher level intimidation tactics. And of course, he starts hitting his brakes again to show his firearm again. These fear and intimidation tactics are otherwise known as police tactics.
Let's look at some countermeasures to defense against this police gang stalking and this community harassment. Number one, don't sweat the small stuff. Gaslighting is huge with these nut jobs as they try to use these warrantless entries to intimidate you. If these operatives are going to feloniously break and enter into your home just to move, for example, one lamp to the other side of the room just to mess with your psyche, who is the real mental case here? Number two, remember who is in control. If you move, they have to move. Hence, you control them, plain and simple. Number three, avoid isolation. Now, this is extremely important. When you isolate yourself, you give them control, and this is when they get their sickest kicks. Avoid sitting at home at all costs. This also makes them work harder when you're out and about. Number four, be unpredictable. This makes them work harder as well. And like I said, you want to make them work as hard as possible. Don't make anything easy for these perpetrators. Number five, join forces with other legitimate victims. There are a lot of fakes out there, so you have to be careful in this process. But if you're persistent, you will find legitimate targeted individuals to network with. And number six, film, film, film. I can't emphasize this enough. Go ahead and start today getting your evidence together. Let me give you an example with this next perpetrator.
As you can see, the perpetrator has made his move. He's made his presence known. What you need to do is get yourself in position to get a good camera shot of the perpetrator. When you are getting ready to make your shot, make sure your cameras are in position and they are focused. Since we were on the subject of hierarchy earlier, let's not forget one of the primary agendas this program is designed for. This program has been ingeniously designed to turn citizen against citizen, and with little energy expenditure, minimum manpower loss, this program delivers severe, widespread damage to the target. After years of research and destroying countless lives, this program and those who control it have become experts at playing groups against each other. Divide and conquer is the goal.
One thing these perpetrators hate more than anything is exposure. And another thing these mental stooges don't realize is these communist bankers, they get just as big a thrill at watching them squirm. Three things you need to remember: persistence, sound discipline, and attitude. you need to wake up with the attitude every day that you're going to do what you want to do and live your life, and there's nothing these perpetrators can do to stop you. Positive attitude is key. And another thing you need to remember is you control your actions and reactions, not these mental misfits out in the street. And one more thing. I wonder how long one of these perpetrators would last on this program. Not very long, I think. You can contact me with comments. My email is attached.